Okay, so this was my entire upper body training session. Got the whole thing on video. And the target weight on bench press today was 207.5 for 5 sets of 3. And so that's 80% of my current max, which is 260. I think this might be the first time I've really put a video up of my bench pressing, so um, one of the problems that I have with the bench press, to be really honest, and I've told this to people before, is that I just don't really care about it all that much. But if I want to do well in these powerlifting meets, I have to care about it. So I've been working on that. Sometimes you have to work on your relationship with certain lifts or certain muscles. And so I have been working on the bench press, and I think it's getting better as a result. So this is 95 coming up here. This was a fairly quick workout. I think it took me about an hour and 15 minutes. Just bench press, chin up, a couple of sets of curls, a couple of sets of triceps, and normally I will have one pushing and one pulling movement, and one direct bicep and one direct tricep movement. So for me, I train upper body twice a week, and I try to make those two sessions as different as possible. But I do need to bench press at least twice a week. So one day I barbell bench. This is on Wednesdays, and then on Saturday I will either dumbbell bench and or incline 45-degree incline bench. And then on Wednesdays, typically I will do chins, and on Saturdays some type of row. And then I also will try to have some kind of variation in the bicep and tricep work between those 2 days. So if you can make subsequent workouts as dissimilar as possible, then you will recover faster from them. So even though I don't really do military presses in my training, if you were going to do a horizontal push, which is the bench press, on one day, a good strategy would be to do perhaps a vertical push on the other day. And a vertical push could be a military press, it could be a dumbbell overhead press. Depending on how you define it, you could use a 45-degree incline for that. Different ways to go about it. It could be a handstand push-up, any of those sorts of things. But these felt pretty good. There was no chance of me missing. This is my last warm-up coming up with 185 pounds. They were hard, but never in doubt. In World Championships in Vegas in October, I'm hoping, I guess that doesn't sound very confident, does it? But I'm looking to hit 275 on the bench press. So that's a little bit ambitious, but I've got time, and these are feeling very solid. I guess I should mention too that I am doing the same training cycle on my bench press right now as I am doing on the deadlift. And that is the Matt Kroc, K-R-O-C, simple deadlift cycle. You can Google that. It's an article on T Nation. That'll come right up on Google. And it's approximately a 16-week cycle. And the only modification I'm making is that on the deadlift, which this cycle was intended for, you have every fourth week off. I don't think you need that kind of recovery on a bench press, so on week 4 on bench press, instead of taking it off, what I do is I will work up to the heaviest single I think I can get that day with a back off set of 10. So I think that's easy to recover from when you're talking on a bench press. So I think this is my first work set coming up. One of my Facebook friends, who I don't know personally, the other day posted that his cousin who was 23 years old, was killed bench pressing. And I guess he was in an athletic training club somewhere, and I guess the bar had been on his neck for half an hour, and I don't know really too much more about it than that, but it's tragic. And you should notice that I am squatting inside of a squat cage here, bench pressing, sorry, I'm bench pressing inside of a squat cage. And if you look at those safety rails on either side, I have this bench set up in such a way that when I bench press, the rails don't obstruct the bar when I'm benching. In other words, when I aim the bar to my chest, the rails don't get in the way. But if I were to ever get into trouble, I can just direct that bar toward my neck, and then the rails will catch it. I don't know if you'll be able to see that here. You'll see as I come down to the chest, the bar will come very close to those rails, but it doesn't get in the way of the bar path. But I think you can also see my neck is lower than those rails, so if I were to ever get in trouble, I can just kind of move that bar toward my neck and kind of wiggle out. So, and I do bench press alone most of the time, and I have made some misses on occasion. So this is a pretty safe way to do this. But you do have to make sure that you have your bench and your safety rails all positioned properly, and you test it out with an empty bar. So these are feeling pretty good. I think these are legal pauses. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. I edited something out of that. I'm not really sure what that was. This might be my last set. I kind of lost count here, but this is either my fourth or my fifth set. I do have more elbow flare than what you would really recommend to somebody on the bench press, in case you notice that. Ideally, in a textbook kind of argument, you should have your elbows a little closer to your body and not have them quite so flared out. It's generally safer on the shoulder, but I have tried that, and actually it hurts me, and it makes me a lot weaker, and I really have given it a shot, and this just seems to be the way that it works the best for me. And I have been bench pressing twice a week for several years now, and I really have very little in the way of pain. In fact, no pain today on these at all. I haven't had shoulder pain in at least a month on bench pressing at all. So I think that was my last set on that, if I'm not mistaken. A week from this workout, I'm scheduled to do 5 singles with 220. And I don't anticipate any problems with that. So moving on to chin-ups, and I have been doing these with additional weight for a while now. I'm trying to get my chin up moving a little bit. So I'm doing a ladder strategy on this, and if you're not familiar with this, this is something that Pavel Tsatsouline popularized a long time ago. And basically the idea on a ladder is that on the first set you do 1 rep, and then on the second set you do 2 reps, and on the third set you do 3 reps, and so that's your ladder. And you kind of work your way up until you are maybe 1 or 2 reps away from failure, and then you start a new ladder. And what I really like about this kind of a system is that it kind of has a built-in warm-up. So you don't have to do any warming up for this, because the first set is 1 rep, so that in essence becomes a warm-up. Even if you, in the case of me here, I have a 25-pound plate hanging from my waist. So second set, which you just saw, I believe, is 2 reps. So I ended up getting a total of 25 repetitions here. I worked up to I went 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that adds up to 25 reps, and that's a pretty good workload for weighted chins, I think. Chad Waterbury some time ago pointed out, I think in a seminar that you did for me, that 25 seems to be kind of the sweet spot for hypertrophy. If you think about the common set rep arrangements that people do for bodybuilding or hypertrophy, you think about 5 sets of 5, 4 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10, and more or less they all kind of come down to about 25 repetitions. So there does seem to be something with that volume. And he argues, as I do, that it doesn't really matter how you get those reps. You might as well just get them as easy as possible. So if I were to do a set to failure, if my first set here on these chins was, let's say, I probably could have done 8. If I were to do 8 on the first set, that would be a huge effort. And on my second set, I would probably only get, 4, to be honest, and then maybe 3. So the point is, if you go to failure and sort of burn yourself out on the first set, you're going to probably limit the total amount of volume that you can put in. And it's the total amount of volume that really matters. So you should really focus less on how hard you work on a set and more on how hard you work for the whole session. And you can kind of expand that philosophy exponentially. It's not really so important how hard you work on one session. It's how hard you work in a given week or a given month. So it's really about consistency, and I'm all about being as intense as possible. But if you, sort of use the analogy of your diet, let's say you eat really, really great for 2 days in a row, whatever that means, whatever your definition of eating great is, really clean or whatever it is, you didn't have any junk food. But then that stressed you out so bad that the next day you just went totally nuts and devoured everything in sight. So really, if you're looking at it from like a week, it's how well you eat on average that really matters, not how well you ate on your best day. So I really can't stress enough how, consistency and the whole process is what really matters, as opposed to how hard you go on a given set or a given session. Now, the reason you see me just standing here is because my next set is only 1, and I don't really need too much recovery for this, so I just kind of stood there. So this is the beginning of my second ladder. And these are feeling pretty good. I'm a little cautious sometimes on these because I do have, although I don't have very much in the way of injuries, I do have a little calcium in my left elbow, and if you watch me carefully at all, you'll see my left elbow doesn't fully straighten. And it makes me a little nervous, and sometimes I feel a little pressure in my elbow when I do stuff like this. So it makes me a little gun shy to really, really go hard. This was not particularly hard in terms of what I was doing here. You can see me, I'm popping right up there. So I think there's 2 more sets of chins here, if I'm not mistaken. Honestly, in all of these chins, only the set of 5 and the 2 sets of 4 were hard. The rest were easy. So, more than half these reps were pretty easy. And over the course of my career, I've noticed that one thing that really helps with chin-ups is to not get to the brink of failure. Don't make these grindy and really hard. Watch the tempo on my first chin-up here. It's very brisk, no problem at all. It's just boom. That's how you want most of your chin-ups to be. Now, obviously, at a certain point, they're going to get a little slower. My third rep here will be a little slower. But you don't want them to be really, really grindy and slow. There's just something about that that will kind of really tear you up. So if you can only do 5 chin-ups, do sets of 2 until you start slowing down, as opposed to doing a set of 5 and then you're completely wiped out and you're done. So I think at this stage I'm moving on to curls. And I went light on these. Oh, maybe I got more chins. Yep, more chins. Okay, so I think this is my last set of chins, 4 reps. I really am kind of working on a set of 20 on chins. I think that would be impressive. I've done 18, but I might wait for my 55th birthday, which is in November, and try to see if I can knock out a set of 20 chins in November. I think this is my last set. The reason I'm pausing down there is because I kind of swing a little bit, so I'm trying to just wait until I stop swinging so I can kind of have a better attempt. So that's my last set of chins. And I just finished up here with 2 sets of barbell curls. and 2 sets of lying dumbbell tricep extensions. Again, I'm a little gun shy about the elbow on some of these direct elbow things, so I didn't really go hard here. This is like 65 pounds for 2 sets of 10. Very easy, but I was trying to be fairly strict. Nothing too big. I think it's fairly strict. Reasonably. I see myself kind of swinging a little bit here, but not too bad. I almost lost one of those plates. I think you'll see me putting a pair of collars on this bone after that, on this bar after this first set, because I must be lifting asymmetrically on some level, because on the right side that plate almost came off the bar. And so this was just 30-pound dumbbells on the tricep extensions. And I'm doing these, there's kind of 2 ways to do these. You can keep the elbows stationary, or you can let them drift back, which is what you're seeing me, that's what you're seeing me do right now. And if you let them drift back, you get more of the long head of the tricep and a little bit of actual challenge to the lat muscle as well. So there's kind of 2 ways to do this. These can also be done with an easy curl bar, and I do alternate. So the next time I train upper body, I will train triceps either with tricep pushdowns, or you know, it could be a close grip bench press, or it could be that exercise I'm doing here with an easy curl bar. But the point of it is that if you're going to train triceps 2 workouts in a row, that's great, but make those 2 workouts as different as you can. And not only different in terms of the exercise, but maybe different in terms of the loads and the sets and reps. The more different they are, the better off you'll be. So, that looked pretty good, pretty easy. I think the most I've really done for 10 is maybe 85, so I'm certainly not strong on that exercise by any stretch of the imagination. If I forgot to mention this earlier, I think this whole workout took me 1 hour and 15 minutes, which actually is kind of quick for me. I'm kind of slow, to be honest, as I go through these things sometimes, but this workout wasn't too challenging, so I kind of worked through it pretty quickly. My elbow actually felt fine after this, so that will kind of embolden me to go heavier on direct arm work next time, since it felt okay. So hope you enjoyed this. I'll be posting more of these in the future. If you have questions, comments, any of that, you know the drill. Leave me a comment below. Would love to hear from you. And I'll see you next time.